In Shvii of Parshas BeHaalotchah, we have the story of Miriam and Aaron speaking about Moshe. And for this incident of what they spoke about Moshe, Miriam is in the end punished. And we are told what they spoke about Aldoto Isha Kushita Shelakach, Kisha Kushit Lakach. What they're saying is true. And in fact, Moshe doesn't object, V'Ish Moshanov Me'od, and Moshe argues in defense of Miriam, but nonetheless, Miriam is punished and suffers tzarat, which is to be understood as she is motzi raz. Chazal understand the term of mitzorah, that is, she speaks evil. And there is, according to, for example, the Ramban, there is the Iser of Minoraisa, of Lashon Hara per se, and according to the Rambam formulates it beautifully at the end of, although the Rambam doesn't seem to quote it, say Lashon Hara is a specific Aveira, right? But the Rambam says, he quotes the pasuk in Kiseitze, he shomer b'nega tzarat, and it's connected. In the end of the pasuk is Zachar et asher asa Hashem Elokecha LaMiriam baderech. The Rambam in Hilchot Deot, in the 7th parak, describes the 3 steps of what we generally call Lashon Hara. But the first one is Hamaragel B'Chaveiro, or Lotelech Rachil. And it's just talking about other people all the time, not saying anything bad. Lashon Hara, which is seems to be the next step afterwards, is where what you're saying is true. The person did the particular thing that he is being criticized for, but you shouldn't be speaking about what people do wrong. The third is Motzi Shemra. The highest level is Motzi Shemra. Motzi Shemra is where I am speaking about a person who did an evil thing, who did a wrong thing, who does an Aveira, and it's not true. Motzi Shemra is a lie. Now we all understand that this is something very difficult to deal with, certainly in an age in which news about others on all kinds of level is the entertainment, and you can't open up a newspaper without seeing it. You can't listen to news without it. In fact, this news channel says that news channel is fake news, and this, that, and so on and so forth, and back and forth, and fake news, which is Motzi Shemra, is news in itself. So everything is very jumbled up. We know the difficulty we have with that when we daven every day. Every time we daven, we know the difficulty of speaking truth before God, because speaking truth before God takes place in Shmon Esrei, in Omed Lifnei HaMelech, where we are reporting, as it were, to God our needs and the way we are dependent upon Him. But we say to speak before God is difficult to open my mouth, and we have to pray. Before prayer, we pray to God to give us the strength to be able to speak before Him. Elokai, right? Hashem, Svatai Tiftach, God, you have to open my lips because I'm dumbfounded before I can't speak. And what will I speak? Ufi agid tilatecha. And if you give me the power to speak before you, I will speak of your praise. Wow. Well, most of Shmon Esrei seems to be asking for things. Well, we couldn't even have the audacity to ask for things if God did not give us the power to speak. But when we finish speaking. We have one last prayer after Shmon Esrei, as it were, is over. We have it. We have an addition, and the addition Elokai Nitzor Lashoni Mera. Right now that I'm not going to be davening anymore, nonetheless, give me the power and give me the aid that I needed to speak before you. Give me that power and aid in order to keep my mouth from speaking evil. Nitzor Lashoni Meirau Sostai Midabir Mirma, and for my lips speaking deceitfully. Perhaps we could go from Lashon Hara to the deceitfulness of the Motzi Shemra. So the question, of course, is what is the, if you will, what is the Yetzer Hara for all of this? Why do we need to speak? Why is it so? Why is it that people say, well, I'm not speaking Lashon Hara. It's a mitzvah to tell everybody about this person, how bad they are, or whatever it is. Where does it all come from? So there are two very interesting observations. The one um, is that we 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 of what we call Lashon Hara. Why do we have to speak about? Let's not talk about Motzi Shemra. We understand what's in it for me when I'm Motzi Shemra, but what is Lashon Hara? Why am I telling? So on one level, it's because I'm engaging in self-aggrandizement. What does that mean? Let me say that I say to somebody, and it's the truth, mamish the truth. I say, look, I saw Yankel, and you won't believe it. You won't believe it where I saw him. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't tell you. I don't know. Okay, all right. You're nudging me. I'll tell you. I saw Yankel. He was sitting. He was sitting in a McDonald's. Sitting in a McDonald's, you say, Chas Shalom, but so what? But maybe he shouldn't have been in there, Marasayan, so and so. Maybe he's drinking Coke. No. He was eating a cheeseburger. He was eating something in McDonald's, but how do you know? Maybe it wasn't a cheeseburger. No, I know it's a cheeseburger. Yeah. When did this happen? I said, well, I'll tell you. It happened. It happened yesterday. Yesterday, you say? What are you crazy? It happened yesterday. Yankel sitting. You stop me. What do you try to do? No. I'll tell you. Yesterday. What do you mean? Yesterday. Yes. I know why you're saying it. Yesterday. I know. Yesterday was Yom Kippur, and it was Shabbos. Yom Kippur Shechalios b'Shabbos. Oh my gosh! You say how could that? Look, I can't believe it. How would you? Anyway. How would you know? It was Yom Kippur. It was Shabbos. How would you know? Well, I mean, where were you? You walked by. You say you were. What are you talking about? How could we? No, I was mamish sitting next to him. You were what? You were sitting next to him. Yeah. Yeah, I watched him eat the cheeseburger. I was there. What were you doing there? No, I didn't have a cheeseburger. I had some fries. What? What I've told you, the idea that we're talking about him is that I wouldn't be like that. That's what I told you is a ridiculous story. But I was ready to say he did it. When I'm speaking badly of the other person and I'm placing it as something bad to be condemned, by definition, I'm saying, look at me. I'm not like that. So I am boasting about myself. So that's the one function of Lashon Hara. And in a Sefer Avos Meisharim by Rav Moshe Rosenstein, who is the mashgiach in the Lomje Yeshiva in Lomje in Europe, he goes on from that understanding, without the example of the McDonald's and so on and so forth, but But he goes on to another thought, which he says, it has suddenly occurred to me at the end of his analysis of Lashon Hara and the need for Lashon Hara that people seem to have, that it actually indicates a lack of emunah. It's not just I want to punish him. And the idea of punishing the other person through Lashon Hara, through speaking of the things he's done wrong, is well known by anthropologists in simple societies. It's social sanctions that we speak about the person and he's breaking the today this less relevant because today in modern large societies, in fact, people love to talk lashon hara, not as a censure, but wow, like that guy was able to do this and that. But he says there's another one, and it goes beyond that lashon hara, telling what the other people have done wrong, indicates a lack of emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a doubt sown by me that there is justice in the world. If a person did something wrong, something awful, yesh din v'yesh dayan, there is a law and there is a dayan and there is a judge, and judgment will be rendered. The reason that I have to go and spread the story is because somehow I think the guy is getting away with something. Nobody is getting away with anything. We always are in the presence of God, and that is how, as I often say, quote, the Ramah begins Shulchan Aruch with the quote from the pasuk Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid, and a summary of the Rambam. I place God before me always. I am always in the presence of God, and then a summary of the Rambam in the almost next to last chapter, next to last chapter of the Guide for Plex. That this pasuk is the guiding spirit of people who are truly serving God. And that is that they are always in the palace of the king. And in the palace of the king, one behaves differently. Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. And God sees me. Hayisater ish b'mistarim. The pasuk from Yirmiyah is quoted by the Ramah and quoted from Yirmiyah and quoted by the Rambam in that chapter 52 of book 3. Can a person hide in the deepest hiding places? Vanochi lo erenu, and I shan't see him? Of course God sees. So we don't have to be, we're not called upon by God to be those who administer the punishment through Lashon Hara. There is one further thing to say about this, and that is, there are many further things to say about Lashon Hara. I remember when I first came to Eretz Yisrael, and I was in Yeshivat Mitar. One of the early sichot I gave was because in the library in Yeshivat Mitar, and I've noticed this in other libraries as well, there was a separate section of halacha, and in the section of halacha, of course, there was Shulchan Aruch and Tur, and of course, a number of copies of the Mishnah Brura. It belongs in halacha, no doubt, right? But in the Musar section, was another sefer of the Chafetz Chaim, Sefer Chafetz Chaim, Shmiras Halashon. That was in the Musar section. And I remember giving a sikha. I don't remember exactly what I said, but the sikha was built on this discovery that we know what's halacha, but we don't know that Chafetz Chaim is halacha. Right? That's a halacha sefer. It's the halachas of Shmiras Halashon. It's the halachas of the reason that there is a lotase of Lashon Hara, according to many Rishonim, certainly of Lotelech Rachil, and there is a mitzvah hasei to remember what happened to Miriam, that because of this, and so on and so forth. So it belongs in halacha to know what is lashon hara and what is not lashon hara. Now, lashon hara, especially in a society that is a society that is looking for lashon hara all the time in the world, um, there is a wonderful letter that Rav Hutner wrote in 1963 in Tafshin Chav Gimel to a Talmud in the yeshiva, right? And apparently the Talmud was had a sense of failure, a sense of lack of progress. The beautiful letter is printed in the Igrot of Pachad Yitzchak, number Kuf Chav Chet 128, and Rav Hutner tells him the following thing. Okay, and it's about achieving perfection, if you will. So he says, we have a way in our world. We talk about the idea that Gedolim, great Talmidei Chachamim, great Tzaddikim, they are shalem, they have achieved perfection. And at the time that we talk about it, we talk about their perfection, but we skip over, and I'm more or less translating freely, we skip over this inner struggle that took place in their souls, right? The impression in our discussion of Gedolim is often taken as if they came from very birth as Gedolim, as Tzaddikim. For example, he says, everybody speaks, and we really tremendously admire the purity of speech of the Chafetz Chaim, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. But who knows of all the wars and struggles and failures and fallings and testings that the Chafetz Chaim had to encounter in his own war, with his own Yetzer Hara, with his own evil inclination. And he says, and you should understand that your life also is going to be one of struggle. And he goes on to speak about the Shevii Yipol Tzadik V'Kam, about it's not that the tzaddik falls 7 times, but he only can stand in the end after going through periods of failures. Now, when I first read this letter, I said, my goodness, where does Rav Hutner know this from? I mean, have you ever read a biography or heard anybody tell you a story about the Chafetz Chaim in which you heard that the Chafetz Chaim was speaking Lashon Hara Chas v'Shalom? I mean, I don't want to be accused of anything. I've never heard such a story. I can't imagine anybody telling such a story. So how does Rav Hutner know such a story? How is he able to listen to such a story? And the answer is, and I think this is the pshuto shel of the letter, Rav Hutner doesn't know any stories about it. We don't know. But it can't be that people are just born that way and are just naturally that way. We go through struggles, and the struggles about rechilut, about stam, talking about this one and that one, and lashon hara, and at times motzi shemra, are real struggles. And nobody just comes to it easily. Life is a struggle. And this is, by the way, just occurs to me now. This is the Rav Hutner speaks about the way Gedolim become Gedolim. If I could put it in English, and some of you recognize where I'm going with this, how is a Gadol made? Gedolim are not born; they are made. There is a book, 2-volume book that was published quite a number of years ago. Well, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I've lost track of time, by Rav Nosson Kamenetsky, Zichrono Livracha. Rav Nosson wanted to write a book called The Making of a Gadol. And of course, he gathered tremendous amount of information about Gedolim of the previous generations. especially in the world of yeshivas, and all that he learned from his father, stories his father told him, and this became the making of a gadol. And the book was put into book was put into a ban. It was put into cherem. It had to. Rav Nosson was suffered much because of this. The making of a gadol. Their gedolei Torah banned the book. Rav Nosson subsequently wrote another book, which is not publicly circulated, in which he discussed what happened in the making of that ban, and he called the book "The Making of a Ban." Okay, I think that was the title of the book. You won't find it in any bookstore, but the book was published. What was Rav Nosson's point? Rav Nosson's point was exactly the point that Rav Hutner was trying to make. That it's not. It's about Rav Hutner attacks essentially is attacking the gutturology that we feed to our children, right? Because not talking about the struggle to become great, the struggle to become better, we give a picture of books about Gedolim who, when they were 2 years old, were tzaddikim, were chopping wood in the forest for poor women, while they were saying slichos, because, but as if it's almost as if they were born, and the kid 5 years old or 10 years old, no, he's not like that, and 15 and 20 and 25 and 30, we know we're not like that, but are we trying to become? If we knew that it was not something that you're either born with, you're a natural, or rather than something that you grow into, you become better. Life is, a human being is a mahalech, he's a person in a process of becoming better. And hopefully we can become better. And hopefully we can speak about only good things, and good things of of um, of others, and Hakadosh Baruch Hu should give us the wisdom to and help us. Nitzor l'shoni meira miyo ish hechafetz chayim oev yomim liros tov. Nitzor l'shoncha meira. Learn, in Yiddish's expression, zu schweigen kommt us net. Rather than saying something, it's better silence. The Gemara says, milu b'sela, a word might be worth one sela, $1 we'll call it. But mashtuka, betray, silence is worth 2. Now that can be applied in many ways. But in this parsha, let us remember what happened to Miriam and why it happened and what we're supposed to learn from that, and how that learning is supposed to be the way we live, and how we live we come to through the love of Torah.